I know who you are, and I saw what you did. Yes, that is not available on CBS Fox VHS. No problem. Have a good day. Let's get ready to wrap up our CBS Fox adventure. We've covered James Bond, we've covered the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, so let's hit those last few titles and see what we got. Thank you to those of you who've watched the previous installments. I hope you've enjoyed watching them as much as I've enjoyed making them. Let's kick off with 1971's Vanishing Point. When we think of high-octane car chase movies from the 70s, probably think of things more like this, Smokey and the Bandit, something like that. It's fun, it's silly, got some great stunt work in there, a lot of classic lines and characters. Vanishing Point is very different. We hadn't quite reached that Smokey and the Bandit, Gumball Rally, Cannonball Run kind of stuff yet. This is very serious, a disgruntled ex-cop, ex-Vietnam veteran, high up on drugs, driving this, speedy muscle car through the desert, that kind of thing. Very bleak movie. It definitely fits in with the 70s anti-establishment. You can fight the man, but you're not going to win because the man has you outgunned and outmanned, that sort of thing. It's okay. It is a little too bleak for me, I think. I do really like Barry Newman in this. He's quite good. There's some great supporting cast members, especially Cleavon Little from Blazing Saddles, who is good as Super Soul, the disc jockey. Because this is still technically Pride Month, several of these movies are LGBT, including this one. Only in this one, the gay characters are hitchhikers who get the crap beaten out of them by Barry Newman because they try to murder him. So we're seeing some homophobia today for Pride Month, as well as some support in these other movies here. But there is some good stuff, some good stunts. It's just maybe if you go in expecting something fun and a walloping good time, you're not really going to get it. Let's take a look at next one from 1972, Cabaret. So Bob Fosse's masterpiece here won him a Best Director Oscar. Liza Minnelli, she's really good in this. An interesting look at Weimar Germany, which was Germany before the ascension of the Nazi Party. That's actually a subplot in this film, people flocking to the Nazi Party just because they want leadership or they want support or things of that nature, maybe not fully realizing the ramifications of their decision later. Like Vanishing Point, definitely some LGBT stuff here, this time more positive, written by, the book I should say was written by a gay man, Christopher Isherwood, and Joel Grey, also a gay man, won his Best Supporting Actor Oscar for playing the Master of Ceremonies at the Cabaret. So a lot of good songs in this one, a lot of different things in there. It was kind of a unique musical for its time, and I think it's held up quite well too. Michael York is in this, he's very good. A lot of interesting stuff there. Speaking of Oscar wins, one that people love to hate on, here's from 1974, Harry and Tonto. Art Carney won his Oscar for this, beating Al Pacino and Jack Nicholson and several other big-name actors. A mean old man and his cat on a cross-country bus trip. And people are like, really? That's an Oscar winner? But it's one of those movies that's just fun to watch. Carney is really good. He'll always be remembered, of course, as Ed Norton on The Honeymooners. And, of course, for being in the Star Wars Holiday Special. But that's another story. I really like him in this. And I'm a cat guy, so I like his pet cat, too. He makes the bus stop so he can take his cat outside and let it go to the bathroom and all sorts of things like that. It's just a family, kind of simple movie. Nothing too crazy. But if you want something you can just relax and enjoy, that's the kind of movie you want. So something I talked about when I first started this series, move my fish mug here, was it is a period of civil war. Rebel spaceships striking from a hidden base have scored their first victory against the evil Galactic Empire. So, Star Wars on home video. The joke often is there are 3 reasons to still have a functioning VCR. Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. These are all from different, release series. As far as I know, this release predates all of these. And it's so fun to watch older versions of Star Wars before all the added, frills and digital things like that. I mean, I grew up watching them on VHS. The DVDs were a bit of an adjustment for me. But it's still such a great film, no matter how you watch it. And someday I'll have to do some proper Star Wars videos, because if I get started on this, it's just going to be a half hour of me talking about Star Wars. But this tape was printed 1984. One of the people that inspired me to be a YouTuber, Nathan P. Butler, he has a whole channel devoted to just Star Wars home video releases. He talks at length about this. I recommend checking that out. Great box. Love the stylized spine there with the logo. What can you say about Star Wars that hasn't already been said? And speaking of iconic, our martial arts master Bruce Lee, his final film, as the back of the box says, his last kung fu thriller. There are some different versions of Game of Death. I know different edits and things because, of course, Bruce Lee passed away while it was still in production. So there are some scenes that do a good job of covering up the fact it's another actor, you know, he's like a helmet on, he's driving a motorbike, that sort of thing. And there are other scenes, notably the notorious instance where there's a photo of him pasted to a mirror, and that's supposed to be him. You have to see it, I think, to believe it. But yeah, a really nice box too. I like all the Bruce Lee films have this sort of design, but I think they changed the colors and it has a cool spine with some martial arts iconography on there. Pretty cool. And I love Dean Jagger. He was actually in Vanishing Point too, and he's in this as the villain. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who I remember as Roger Murdoch on Airplane, is in it too as one of his foes. You know, this huge man who can just kick him from a distance. It's a fun movie. I like it a lot. Chuck Norris is in it briefly. A lot of good stuff. Let's talk Bette Midler. Some say love, it is a river. I like The Rose. It's also kind of a bleak film, you know. It's kind of like, it has like a Star is Born kind of qualities to it, you know, this young rock singer who is unhappy and abuses drugs and alcohol and other people and dies, you know, young. Live fast, die young, I guess. But Bette Midler is really good in this, and compared to a lot of the movies that she would do later, you know, The First Wives Club and that kind of stuff, this is a much needed change of pace. And I do like her in it. It's not an easy film to watch necessarily because it's so self-destructive, but you know, it's interesting. It's very well made, and she's quite good in it. Let's jump back to our Pride Month shenanigans here with Cruisin. Cruisin is another one like Game of Death. There are different versions that circulate on home video. I don't know how complete or how you know, if this is like the de facto version, that I really couldn't say. Cruisin, of course, Al Pacino as a cop going undercover in the leather scene in gay bars in New York. There's a big disclaimer at the beginning about how this film is not indicative of the LGBT community, just of those who frequent, you know, pretty raucous establishments there. You know, in some ways, I think it was maybe trying to be maybe not pro-gay, but at least sympathetic with, you know, cops taking the time out to help gay men who are victims of a killer. But at the same time, it is still a bit on the homophobic side. You know, it's made very clear Pacino doesn't want this job, and it's affecting his personal life and stuff. It's got a few very graphic scenes. It's not one of my favorites. I'm glad I own it, and I do watch it occasionally, but it's a little on the harsh side for me. Here is Death Hunt. I mentioned Death Hunt when I mentioned On Her Majesty's Secret Service, as this is also directed by Peter Hunt, the Bond editor who directed that George Lazenby Bond film. Death Hunt is pretty cool, based on a true story. Charles Bronson being a rugged, you know, frontiersman in the north of Canada, and runs afoul of the law, quite by accident. And the manhunt to track him down, led by Lee Marvin, and Charles Bronson's pretty tough. He's too smart for them, and a lot of them get killed, and it's very much a survivalist story. It's a really good movie, and it's held up quite well. Peter Hunt, a gay man, so we can celebrate him for Pride Month. Peter Hunt was a very gifted director, but he never really caught on either, I don't think. And not many, I think he's actually probably better remembered as an editor, but this was a good movie. I was impressed by this, because I didn't know much about it going into it, and I really enjoyed it. Let's talk Michael Douglas now. The Star Chamber. So this is one of those films, it reminds me a lot of the Dirty Harry movie Magnum Force, where it's all about vigilante justice, only instead of cops, in this case it's judges, who work behind the scenes to make sure criminals who've escaped on little legal technicalities get their just dues, usually death by hitman. And Michael Douglas is wondering, how far can this go? Because the problem with vigilante justice is, anyone could be next, really. You make one mistake and you're dead. It's an interesting movie. It is very thought-provoking. I think it's aged pretty well. I recommend that. Next up, from 1984, we are almost done. Garbo Talks. Greta Garbo, despite being one of the biggest stars of the 20s and 30s, I think her star has fallen quite a bit. Here's the jumbo box set there. She didn't make many movies, really, and I don't know how well remembered a lot of them are. I've had this for a long time. Camille is my favorite movie of hers. Queen Christina is up there pretty high. Anna Karenina I really like. So this is a movie starring Anne Bancroft about her obsession with Garbo and how it rubs off on her son and her daughter-in-law and so on. And it's an interesting movie. Again, it's one of those like Harry and Tonto. It's one of those kind of heartwarming tales, nothing too fancy here. They wanted Garbo herself to be in it as a little cameo, but she declined, so there's a stand-in for her. It's harmless, it's innocuous, it's not particularly good, but I like Garbo and I enjoyed it. 1985, A Room with a View, based on the E.M. Forster book. I've never been a huge fan of E.M. Forster, maybe just because I'm not super well versed on Edwardian England and the customs of wealthy people, of the aristocracy and so on. I was not a huge fan of Room with a View, but maybe if I was a posh British gentleman, it would mean a lot more to me. Got a great cast though. Helena Bonham Carter, Maggie Smith, Daniel Day-Lewis, and I don't know, it's just a little too posho for me. Probably the one I remember the least of all these movies, from 1986, is Target, starring Matt Dillon and Gene Hackman as a father and son who are acting kind of as freelance secret agents in Europe to track down Gene Hackman's wife, that kind of thing. I remember liking it. I've only watched it once. I remember liking it a lot, but I don't really remember much of what happened in it. It's a very run-of-the-mill 80s action thriller, as I recall. Hackman and Dillon are both quite good in it as father and son, can't stop bickering and whatnot, and they get roped into this big conspiracy thing here. I gotta watch this one again. I will say the box for this one's in really good shape. Better shape than any of the other videos I have that aren't still sealed. So I think whoever had this, or whatever video store had this, it didn't really get rented or watched too much. Last one. And we're done with this series. We'll move on to a different group of VHS tapes for next time. And of course there'll still be DVDs and absolutely Beach Boys content on here as well. But our last CBS Fox buddy here, Pacific Heights, the only one I have from the 90s. It's got the cool spine with pictures and stylized text on it. Don't see that too often. Pacific Heights, the eviction thriller, as it's known. Michael Keaton, fresh off playing Batman, as the man who moves into your apartment that you're renting and destroys it and then makes you look bad and manages to sue you and collect all your money. And can Melanie Griffith and Matthew Modine stop him? A lot of people, rag on it because it is, kind of I once saw a review that said it was the ultimate yuppie nightmare, and I guess I can kind of see that. It's a weird premise, but I think it works, and Tippi Hedren has a really good cameo in it. It's got some good suspense scenes. I enjoy it. It's no masterpiece, but it sets out and accomplishes what it tries to do, I think. So if you have any favorites in the CBS Fox series, or you have any fond stories about any of these films, slide them over here for you so you can see the spines again. Please do leave them in the comments. I love to see the things you have to say. Hope you enjoyed our adventure through retro CBS Foxland. Please like the video and come back for more. And until I see you again, my friends, have a good one.